Hey guys, welcome to the Perdie channel. I'm your host, Matt Perdie. Just straight chilling here with Cam here. Cam Williams, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I had to go off my memory. I didn't even ask him beforehand. I just had to go off of like what I remember from Facebook posts and whatnot. So, how's it going?
Going pretty good.
So, I hear you're running for something.
Yes, I am. I'm running for the Board of Supervisors to represent the Happy Creek District in Warren County.
How old are you?
I am 20 years old.
Why the hell are you running for Board of Supervisors at 20 years old?
I ask myself that all the time. But for the past few years, Warren County has faced a whole lot of problems. We've had the largest embezzlement scandal in Virginia history. We have had a growing scandal with our library, growing budgetary crises, a different problem every single day. And I just thought that it's about time that we have fresh voice on the Board of Supervisors, that we have a fresh perspective on how we should be governing this county. And I guess I would say my biggest influence in running is my opponent, Tony Carter, who has caused a lot of the problems that we're seeing right now in our county.
Yeah, we're going to get to that, but, I think for our audience, let's summarize Warren County a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
In the grand scheme of things right now. I think in my experience, I would say Warren County, and this is coming from kind of like an outsider's perspective, but it seems like the sort of microcosm of the fight of rural America trying to survive amidst like increased population and like sort of leftist takeover, corporate takeover, data centers, things like that. So Warren County's kind of in the middle of this fight. And just describe the county for us and a little bit of the history and whatnot.
Well, I would say it's the last bastion of rural America. We are on the front lines of a war to preserve faith, family, tradition, the culture that has been dominant in the Shenandoah Valley. And ever since the early 2000s, we've started to become this Northern Virginia bedroom community. And for, I'd say, the first part of the 2000s, everyone who moved here respected our small town charm. They respected the traditions of this community. But in recent years, we've become so polarized. You have this radicalized left that just wants to dominate our institutions. And we've had this slow march towards this liberalism in Warren County.
And how does that show itself?
I think this broader idea of progressivism in rural communities shows itself in, I'd say, the fights we're having right now. We've had fights over public schools. We've had fights over libraries. We've had fights over data centers. Our elections have become this just cesspool of Democrats supporting what they consider the least worst Republican. I think we see it best in our current Republican primary in Warren County. We have these candidates who are being propped up by the Democrats. And the scary thing is that they're getting a lot of traction amongst the older traditional Republicans, the establishment Republicans, the good old boys.
Yeah, because, the older generation is not so much like the solid conservative generation anymore. I think we're seeing, even with the recent, 2024 election, we're seeing a movement, like the boomers are moving away from conservatism a little bit, right? And so you can definitely see that happening with like a lot of the older generations for sure, But what you're talking about is Democrats supporting particular Republicans in the Republican primary, right?
Yes.
And how's that work? How does that show itself in this county?
Well, for some background on this, there was a state law that was passed that restricted how parties could control their nominating process. We used to have these conventions, these really, really cool conventions, I'd say, where the parties would select delegates and then they would decide amongst themselves who would be the nominee. We last saw this with Glenn Youngkin's nomination. Or there would be mass meetings where each candidates would bring in as many people as they could, and whoever could bring in the most people would be the party nominee. Or we would have firehouse primaries that were usually at one location and basically a normal election, but the party could control the process. Now, with this new law, we have the state getting involved, the state mandating 45 days of early voting, the state mandating mail-in ballots, all of this stuff that, the typical Republican would probably argue is not the best in deciding who should be the Republican nominee. The bigger problem with this is that you don't have to be a Republican to run in a Republican primary. You have to file the paperwork, you have to get the signatures, and then you can be on the Republican ballot. You could have voted Democrat your entire life. Hillary Clinton could have moved to Warren County and run in a Republican primary.
Obviously, there's a problem with that, I'd imagine. So,
and it's a big problem. It is a very serious problem because we have two districts up for election in Warren County, Happy Creek and Fork. In both Happy Creek and Fork, you have people, myself included, who have worked with the Republican committee for years, served in committee offices, and then you have people who joined last month or in the case of my race, somebody who has not even joined the committee yet, who is deciding to run as a Republican. And they're getting financial support from Democrats. They're getting financial support from known liberals. Financial support.
Who's paying this guy to run as a Republican? Like, we know they're leftists, but was they throwing thousands of dollars behind this guy?
Well, we'll find out once the campaign finance report comes out.
Ooh, that's fun. So, all right. So obviously, you're kind of an anomaly, but I think you're becoming your sort of type of young guy entering politics around 20 is becoming more common than it was when I was 20. That's for damn sure. But what got you interested in politics in the first place? Because running for Board of Supervisors at 20 years old is not really normal. So, how did that come about?
Well, politics is actually a generational business for me. My father was involved with unions for most of his life, served in the fire department since he was 16 years old. My mom worked on Capitol Hill. My grandfather was in the Monroe County Legislature in New York, and he got elected quite young as well. I believe he was 28 when he first got elected and served for years. So politics is a family business.
It's kind of like the military. You got these military guys, the whole family served, right?
Yep. Yeah, so public service is sort of in my blood, and I'm not really built to be in the fire department, and I don't really want to get in the Capitol Hill swamp. So I thought the best way that I could carry on my family legacy, the best way that I could serve my community, is to run for office.
Yeah, but how are you? Why did politics interest you? Do you think it was just a very organic thing, you just naturally found it fascinating, or is there something about it, or something that clicked that made you say, okay, I'm gonna get involved here?
Well, I wouldn't say I ever found it fascinating. I'd say it always made me very angry.
You just got angry enough to follow in your family's footsteps.
Yes, I wanted absolutely nothing to do with this type of stuff.
That's relatable.
I did not want to get involved because I just thought everyone was awful. And there was one day, it was after the giant embezzlement scandal in Warren County, where I was just endlessly complaining about how could this happen. I heard so much about it, so many rumors that this was in the early days of it. Just all of this was just out there. It was the talk of the town. It was the talk of the schools. And I was just endlessly complaining about it. And my father whipped out one of his famous lines of, "You're not going to do any good by complaining about it. If something's broke, you fix it." And that was when I first got really interested in politics. That was when I first started working on campaigns. I've worked on 9 campaigns. I started
Dude, you worked whoa. You worked on 9 campaigns already?
Yes.
When did you start? When you were like 4 years old?
I mean, I'm not including my grandfather's county legislature campaigns either. I did start when I was 4 on that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I was kidding. I was kidding. He's not.
Yeah. Of note, I was the regional field director for the Trump campaign in Virginia. I covered close to 15 counties, all while I was a full-time college student.
Wow.
So when I say I'm committed and that I want to help my community, I mean it. Like, I really want to help my community, and this is the best way I think I can.
Well, you're using your righteous indignation, wink, wink, in the right way. That's for damn sure. So it's really cool. But how was the Trump campaign work that you did? Tell us about that experience.
It was amazing because there were so many angry people. So many people were just fed up. And they weren't just fed up at, oh, the Democrats are in control and, oh, the humanity. They were fed up because everything that Joe Biden was doing and everything that Joe Biden's handlers were doing was affecting their day-to-day life. They couldn't afford groceries. They couldn't afford gas. These people were losing their jobs. And they were fed up. I know people who hadn't voted ever. And they were in their 70s. And their first vote was for Donald Trump. And it was so amazing to see the impact that just going to somebody's door and telling them, "Hey, I'm with the Trump campaign. Would you like to make a plan to vote?" That had an effect on them because some of these people didn't know how to vote. They were 60, 70, had no idea how to vote. And it was just an amazing experience. There were so many great volunteers. I'm still in touch with a lot of them. These are people who are passionate. These are people who weren't involved in politics before Trump ran. And I know some of them have gone on to run for school board. They've gone on to run for town council. They've gone on to run for Board of Supervisors. So working on the Trump campaign was just an amazing experience. It was an experience like no other. I'd worked on quite a few campaigns before that. State Senate, House delegates, town council.
Well, that sounds pretty rewarding because you're going door to door, you're talking to these people, and then you get to see them actually enter the political system, mm-hmm. right? So, like, give us an example of that.
Well, there was one guy down in Bath County, sort of the middle of nowhere, but it is a beautiful community down there. Amazing people. These are people who care about their small town charm. These are people who want to preserve their community and their culture. He was a first-time political volunteer. He's never knocked on a door for a campaign in his life. And he was actually my best door knocker, knocked on 400 doors. And wow. some other people in the campaign came up to me and said, I didn't know there were 400 doors to knock on in Bath County. But he he saw the impact that he was having on these people. All these people were starting to pay attention to what was going on in their own community, and they were getting fed up because they were having their own budget problems down there. And after the campaign ended, they went on and they started talking to these people, and the former volunteer was told, like, hey, nobody else wants to run. Would you like to do it? And he debated about it with his family, and they all were like, well, nobody else is running and we don't want a vacant seat, so why don't you do it? And he decided to run. He won.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. There are so many examples of this just all over Virginia. I've heard stories about this in Arizona as well. I know quite a few people who were involved with the Arizona Trump campaign. And everyone who worked on the campaign agrees that it was a really rewarding experience.
Wow. All right. So you're running now, young guy jumping into the fray. I mean, what do your friends think about this? Your peers, have you gotten any reactions? Do they think it's kind of neat and cool? Because now we know that Generation Z, and you fall in that category,
yep.
Right? So
pretty squarely in that category.
Yeah. So you guys are on the male side. You guys are pretty conservative. Mm-hmm. The women, not so much. I guess it's a problem for making families right now. But what do your peers think of all this?
Well, a lot of my peers first asked me, "What is the Board of Supervisors?"
Yeah, I could see that. A lot of people don't know. Don't know.
Yeah, and
well, why don't you define that for us after you're done telling us about this?
Well, a lot of them thought it was really neat that somebody their age, well, somebody younger than them is actually running for office. I've gotten mainly positive reactions. I have friends from all over the political spectrum, from hardcore conservative to actual communist. But they all agree that, we need younger people involved in politics. And I think the Joe Biden presidency sort of demonstrated that.
Yeah.
I think if you take one look at our Senate, our House, you would realize that, maybe having people with dementia in office is not the best idea.
The nursing home crew. Yeah.
So I've primarily gotten very good responses from younger people. I've gotten a whole lot of people registered to vote. And I have heard from a lot of people who want to follow this path. They want to run for office in the future. And that's another reason why I want to run. I want to show younger people in Warren County, in neighboring counties, that you don't have to sit on the sidelines and complain or pout or whine. You can actually jump in and you can actually do something. There's more to politics than just voting.
Yeah. Well, the affairs of the city, right? And that's this is what I find interesting, is that to me, it actually makes more sense for young people to be more heavily involved, because they're going to be the ones most directly affected by everything, right?
Yeah.
They got a lot more life to kind of go through the experiences of how the county, country, state are all affected, right? So
yeah, and somebody who's 20 years old has a bigger stake in the community than somebody who's 65 years old, because the decisions I make, if I get elected to the Board of Supervisors, those are decisions that I have to live with. And I hope I can live a long, fulfilling life so I can actually realize that the decisions that I make on the Board of Supervisors were good. But I think even if I do make a bad decision, I should have to live with it. I shouldn't, just be able to serve my term and then retire down to Key West.
Yeah. Very common occurrence. Yeah. So why don't you describe to us what the purpose of a Board of Supervisors is? What is their function in a county or town?
Well, so towns have town councils. In Virginia, most town councils are elected at large. So on your ballot, you pick 3 people that you want to elect. With the Board of Supervisors, you have in Warren County, it's 5 people who each represent a district in the county. So we have Fork, North River, Shenandoah, South River, and Happy Creek. These are basically the political subdivisions where the member for that district represents the constituents for that area, and the Board of Supervisors makes really, really important decisions, whether it be on zoning. So, can you build that here? On the budget, what is our tax rate going to be? How much money are we going to be giving to the public schools? Or
so it really kind of downplays the role of the mayor, I guess you would say, a lot, right? Like the people, maybe they're more attentive to like what a mayor is, and I know that's just a town, right? But if you're going to pick one, like which is more important, I would imagine the Board of Supervisors has much more of an effect on the area.
I would say so, yes. The Board of Supervisors does have a lot more power than a mayor does in Virginia. In Virginia, mayors are, we actually call it a weak mayor model, where the mayor does not really have any authority within themselves. They can split ties on town councils, but they mainly are symbolic.
Wow. So now that you are running for the Board of Supervisors, what are like the most important platforms that you're running on? What are you going to do? What are you going to vote on? What are your general platforms?
Well, my general platform is really just supporting our first responders. We here in Warren County have been experiencing just a severe deficiency in our fire department, in our sheriff's department. We've not been able to fully fund them. We've had, last time I checked, 400 missed calls, or calls that the fire department could not respond to in the last year, because our first responders are lacking equipment. They're lacking support. They're down.
So they're not
positions.
getting enough money?
They are not getting enough money.
Okay. So, but no, you know, like, this guy has seen me rant in Republican meetings about this, but I'm just going to, so for the audience's benefit, FYI, the local school here, the student body in the past 10 years has gone from 5,400, yep, down to 5,000 the past decade. And yet the budget for the school has increased by about $20 million in that time, meaning every year the budget's expanding. So it's not even just $20 million being spent over 10 years. You're probably talking about $200 million, right? More or less. So maybe about 190, 200, right? Somewhere around there. But so all this money is going to the fat cats over at, the administrators, more than likely, are sucking it up over at the schools. While the fire department's saving people's lives, they don't even have the equipment to do their job, right?
Yeah, and I will also add that, I believe it was last year when we had the tax increase, my speech before the Board of Supervisors about funding the public schools has gotten me in quite hot water with certain liberals in our community.
Oh. Well, that's a badge of honor. That is a badge of honor, so that's good. That's good.
Yeah, and
if people are getting upset, you're doing your job.
Yeah, and while I will say we should be focusing on teacher retention, we should be focusing on classroom sizes, I don't think teachers should have to be buying their the stuff for their classroom. They shouldn't have to buy their teaching materials. A lot of the money going to the public schools now should be going to support our teachers. We honestly shouldn't have the lowest paid teachers. I believe in the Shenandoah Valley, I think we may be on some tier list for Virginia. And we're losing a lot of good teachers to Loudoun County, Fairfax County. Now, they obviously have their own issues over there. But we shouldn't be losing teachers who were born and raised in Warren County, grew up in the schools, know the schools best.
So wait, do you think that the school needs more money to do this? Or do you think they just need to cut in places where there's just extraneous spending?
Well, obviously, we should not have extraneous spending.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't need fat in the budget.
And how much fat is in there, do you think?
Ooh, I mean,
you got to look at the numbers, right?
Yeah,
But
I don't want to just rattle off numbers right now and be proven wrong later. I would not say it's an extreme amount of fat. I don't think it's like USAID fat in the budget.
Yeah.
I think there is some there. I would not want to advocate giving them more money if we can actually look into it and see where can we move some stuff.
Well, even freezing the budget, which happened last year, even that has a profound impact on like just cutting back on their growth, right?
Yeah, but I also don't think a budget freeze is something that should be permanent.
No.
If we see really good improvements,
yeah,
like if we think that the schools do need more money because they need new programs, some stuff that has been discussed is a robotics program, other things, shop classes, HVAC, some hands-on skills.
Yeah.
Now, the hands-on skills should not be replacing the typical skills that you should be learning in school. I mean, people need to know how to read. People need to know how to write. People need to know math. People need to know science. These are very, very important things. I'm a big advocate for the great books. I'm a big advocate for philosophy. These are things that, kids 100 years ago knew pretty well, but now we just don't see that anymore. So I think we need the hands-on skills. We need to enhance the intellectual ability of our students. We have seen plummeting test scores, and that's devastating because there is so much potential in our community.
Stat. Yeah, I heard the stat was 4 out of 10 schools are not meeting federal standards. Is that right?
I think that has improved since last year.
Yeah, that's a stat from last year. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that has improved since
That's good.
last year.
And you know what? Guess what happened last year was the budget freeze, right? Funny what you can do. Maybe money isn't all the issue here. Mm-hmm. But, it's interesting because the United States in general, spends more on education anywhere in the entire world.
Yeah,
right?
it's true. And I think that we do need good public schools. Like this is something that we need in our community, especially in Warren County. But we need good schools. We need good public schools.
Well, on that note, here's an idea. What about you guys bring the teachers to the Board of Supervisors for a day and just say, hey, what are some of the things that need to be done to improve your situation? Mm-hmm. And just actually invite them. And I know that sometimes they show up, just to fight on behalf of the lobbyists of the school, right? but like a legitimate session where you're like, hey, what from your observations, what are in your immediate situation, your teaching situation, what are some things that you think you could use some help with? Mm-hmm. Right? Let us know, right?
Yeah. I mean that is an excellent idea. I mean we need to be communicating with the teachers.
Yeah.
We need to see what do they need, and I think the budget freeze was a good idea at the time, and we're starting to see really good improvements.
Yeah, maybe reward them a little bit. We'll see.
Yeah. What is really sad is that we are losing some positions now with the schools. I mean, we're losing reading specialists, and that is something that is regrettable with the budget freeze. I think these are positions that we do need, especially since we're seeing lower proficiency in reading in our schools. So. There are some cases where the budget freeze was not the best idea, but you have to weigh the pros and cons. It was great in some instances, bad in others. And that's just something that we have to live with. It's not going to make, these decisions are not going to make everybody happy.
Yeah. Well, you're never going to make everyone happy in politics, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about the data center situation in Warren County and in general, right? It seems like there's a bunch of people is it Amazon that wants to do it, or is it someone else? I've heard Amazon, but I'm not sure if that's correct.
So with data centers, there is not an open application at the moment. So there aren't data centers, actively proposing to build something in
Not
Warren County
officially,
yet.
you're saying. But there are people running on bringing data centers to Warren County. Is that right?
There are people running who are open to 1 or 2 data centers.
Yeah.
Which,
gosh, it's so the nuance. The fact that you have to talk like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, go on.
I am not going to put words in their mouth. I'm going to say what they said.
What they're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just you have to be so careful.
Yeah. I mean, do they want data centers? They didn't say that. They said they're open to it. They're willing to consider it.
Yeah.
And yes, it is the job of a member of the Board of Supervisors to listen to everything that comes before them and consider everything that comes before them. And will I be considering to bring a data center to Warren County? I'm going to consider it and then say, hell no. Simple as that. Like, I'm considering it in my head right now, and I'm telling you, hell no, we don't want a data center in Warren County.
And why hell no?
Data centers are horrible for the environment. And I am not like the paper straw environmentalist type, but I'm willing to admit that we don't need 4 million gallons of water pumped out of our river on a daily basis.
What's the effect on the grid, on electricity?
I'm not an electrician, so I can't really say what the effect on the grid is in a particular way. I can say that there are rolling blackouts that can happen because of data centers. I mean, it is a horrible strain on electricity. And the thing with Warren County and the thing with Loudoun County, when they first started bringing them in, they did not have the infrastructure for it. Warren County does not have the infrastructure for a data center. And we don't want the infrastructure for a data center. We don't want that. We don't need that. So I don't want to be worsening the drought conditions in Warren County. We have had drought conditions every single year for the past 3 years.
Yeah, people can't even fill up their pools. I've been seeing, But I mean, it's a problem. Like, you want to be able to do that in your yard. You don't have to be worried about some Karen gonna go to the county, right?
Yeah, and the problem isn't that there are people running who are open to data centers. The problem is that they are knocking on our door. They want to build one in Warren County. They're planning to build one in Strasburg right now, right around the corner. We had a great data center talk where people who were involved in the process of the data center application in Fauquier County, they came to Warren County and they warned us. They gave us warnings. There was a supervisor from Prince William County who warned us about the dangers of data centers. And obviously, data centers are in a bigger conversation of tax revenue. And if your sole focus is money, I don't even think data centers are a good idea.
But I've even heard of situations where data centers can avoid being taxed on like personal property taxes and a lot of other things by routing them through a bank. Is that right?
That's right. That is what they did. I believe they did that in Prince William County.
Gosh.
I don't know if it was Prince William County or somewhere else. I'd have to check that.
Guys, why these people? I'm going to talk to the data center people right now. Why are you doing this? Just be honest. You're just pissing everyone off. And then you're going to lose your data center in 5 years when all the technology you're currently using becomes obsolete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is another problem, where they build these big, clunky warehouses that just look horrible. Warren County is the gateway to the Skyline Drive. Do you want to be on the Skyline Drive and look down at this big, beautiful data center? No. No. Who wants to do that?
Yeah. It's just ugly. That's probably the biggest issue here, right? Mm-hmm. Is that it's just ugly, right?
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah. I mean, we need to look at the true, the good, and the beautiful. And usually to get data centers, people have to lie. These things aren't good for the environment, and they sure as hell are not beautiful.
Yeah. No ugly people and no ugly data centers, right? No ugly people in positions of political power. You have to be very specific about what we're talking about here. If you're ugly, if you just happen to be ugly naturally, it's fine. Like, you're cool. You're actually you're a good guy, but it's like there's something to running for office that just I don't know. Like, look at Chuck Schumer. The way his face is shaped, it's like looks like the Grinch, right? It's like these like he just looks kind of like this with his eyebrows, and they're kind of like out here. Like, it just does something to your face and just makes it distorted and disgusting.
I just really hope that does not happen to me. Jeez.
But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I quite like my hair, so I don't think I want to be in this for more than 4 years. I'm just gonna, do my thing for a term and just leave.
Okay, so I should ask: would you vote for a tax reduction in our county? Because right now, I look at Virginia. We've got so many forms of taxes: the personal property taxes, the property taxes themselves. Just between those two, and like if you have a business, you get destroyed by the personal property taxes. Like there's
Absolutely.
like 1,000 things you're paying for, right?
Yeah.
So like, would you advocate for it and try to get a reduction of the taxes in the county?
Off the bat, I would say yes. However, I do not know if that is something that we could immediately do and still maintain our necessary, emphasis on necessary, public services.
Now, let me ask you, because we have a very interesting situation here in specific to Warren County, which is the EDA scandal.
Yes.
And would you say the reason why you're reluctant to say yes to a tax reduction is because the massive debt that we're still paying off in Warren County from the EDA scandal?
Obviously, the debt is a big problem. Some of the debt that we've accumulated is not purely because of the EDA scandal, but a good chunk of it is.
How much of it is?
I would say about half is probably connected to the legal fees.
Half the debt? So
Yes.
is that like $60-70 million?
I would have to look at the chart, but
Roughly tens of millions.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. From legal fees to everything else. And then there's another chunk of it that's related to what I would call like the good debt. You have this debt from capital improvements on the schools. And I will add that we are on a good path in paying off our debt. We are making pretty good payments on it every single year. And I believe that by 2030-ish, we will be debt free. So I am reluctant to say that we need an immediate reduction in taxes. Well, we need it. I think people are just paying too much in taxes. But we need to pay off our debt. We need to provide for our necessary public services. So if we are in the position to do it, 100%, I would be the fiercest advocate for reducing taxes. But it may just be impractical the first day I get on the board.
Yeah. That makes sense.
But within my term, I will advocate for reducing taxes, whether it be giant cut or gradual cuts.
How long is the term in this county?
4 years.
4 years? Okay, yeah, that's a good chunk of time.
Mm-hmm.
Have you spoken to any of the other current Board of Supervisors at all?
Yes, I actually have a good relationship with almost every member of the Board of Supervisors.
Almost all of them. Almost all. Okay, so excluding one maybe.
No, I will say that the member we are speaking of is a very good woman. I will not say anything bad about her. I disagree with her most of the time, but I would say I have a good relationship with her as well.
All right, and what's your position on? Well, I know it, but just for the audience, right? What's your position on the?
I'm scared.
Yeah, yeah, you should be. No, on the library. So I mean, well, there's a lot of things I want to talk about here. But maybe before you go to do that, I want to ask you about the EDA scandal. Can you summarize what that is in a few sentences? Essentially, the basics of what it is. You don't have to list out all the names, but what happened?
Well, there was a very fun title. I believe it was in the Washington Post. Right after the scandal became public, the title was, "The Sheriff's Dead. Millions are missing. This Virginia small town is in trouble." So the long and short of the EDA scandal is $21 million was embezzled by the director of the Economic Development Authority in Warren County. There were land deals, forged contracts, forged checks, weird connections between the county administrator and the Economic Development Authority. Our entire Board of Supervisors got indicted at the time. It was a mess. It was a mess. And there's way too many intricate details to properly explain it, which is why most people boil it down to $21 million embezzled.
So tell us about the library situation that's been going on here the past few years.
Oh boy. My favorite topic.
I know.
Yes.
There's so much. All right, why don't you just do this? Why don't you just summarize what's going on? Just summarize it the way you did with the EDA scandal.
Okay, so I don't get in too much trouble again. Basically, this started a few years ago where there were allegedly books in the library that were inappropriate. They were allegedly in the children's section. There were quite a few people who sent in what were called reconsideration requests, where the library would take a look at these requests, go through the books, and see if these books were appropriate and whether they needed to be moved or even removed from the library. So this continued for a little bit. The Board of Supervisors voted to basically stop funding the library for a few quarters. The library, for context, gets close to $1 million in county revenue every single year. This developed, an agreement was reached. The library agreed that they were going to have different cards, so people could not access books if they didn't have this type of card. So kids had their own cards. I believe young adults had their own cards, and then adults had their own cards. There was a young adults section added, I believe, according to the agreement. And then it was settled for a bit. And then election came around, new Board of Supervisors. Questions arose over the library's finances, where money was going, where county money was going as opposed to donor money. And it basically blew up. There was basically a cease in the contract. So as of, I believe, July 1st, the current vendor for the library will no longer be the vendor. They reached out, had a request for proposals, are currently in the process, I believe, of negotiating with a new vendor, and that new vendor will, I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
It's very, very interesting. I mean, I've actually gone in there and seen in it's may not be in the children's section, like the LGBTQ, the trans stuff. You may not actually see it in the children's section, but you will. I went there myself and I saw there was a book on the second row, from if you're standing the second row from the bottom, right? Very accessible to a child. Child's not only going to walk in the children's section, right? And me personally, I don't understand the obsession and the sweat and the tears that people go through to keep that gross crap in our libraries. Why are they so passionate about that? It's creepy. It's creepy.
Yeah, and I mean, I do agree with some of these people that parents shouldn't be letting their kids just, run about and like just go into these areas and see the stuff. There's room for parental responsibility.
Yeah, but it's
I
a
think,
library.
yes.
It's a library. You should be a safe place. I mean, yeah, you got to make sure your kids aren't like destroying the place or getting lost.
Yeah.
But you should be able to relax a little bit.
Yeah, and I will say this is probably one thing that I can agree with a certain data center curious candidate on.
Data center curious. I've never heard that. Data center curious. So your opponent would identify as data center curious.
Oh, I'm not talking about my opponent here. I'm talking about a completely separate.
Okay, I love that phrase. It's so good.
I'm sharing the love here, because I don't know what my opponent thinks on data centers. Maybe he is curious. Maybe he's data center open.
Yeah.
Is he in an open relationship with data centers? I don't know. We still need to find out.
Data center trans.
So did he go from
he'll be against data centers for right now, and then he'll be for data centers, right? So that would make him data center trans. But you're saying he's not data center trans. He's actually data center curious, or is it open? Which one? What do you think it is?
I don't know, because I don't think that's how trans works. But
how would you define it then?
I'm not going to define it. Hell, I don't. I have no idea. Whatever.
This has gone off the rails.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Maybe I should have picked a better term.
No, I'm in love with this. This is great.
Yeah. So a data center curious candidate made an excellent point that if his kid walked into a 7-Eleven, there is the expectation that the kid can't buy cigarettes and lottery tickets. And that's sort of my view on the library as well. Like if we're going back to the book issues, which I believe the book issue has been resolved. I don't think we need to be beating this drum.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the book issue, there is sort of an expectation that, if your kid goes to 7-Eleven, your 10-year-old can't buy cigarettes and can't buy lottery tickets.
Yeah, but your kid's not going to be able to... I mean, a kid could easily pick up a book, open it up, and look at it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's more of the issue than
yes,
taking it out.
Yes, and I think that, honestly, there needs to be more guardrails. If there are parents out there who think like, oh yeah, I want my kid to read this, I don't want to be like the big government guy where the county is saying, oh, you can't have these in the library, period. Like, but also, let's be real here. There's the internet.
Yeah, these people.
There's plenty
of places you can get it.
Yeah, there are plenty of places to get it.
If you want to get gay, just go on the internet. It's degenerate. It's a degenerate enough place to get the kind of books that you want.
Yeah,
right? But my issue is the taxpayer-funded aspect. Is that my money's paying for something that is like disgustingly degenerate. Now we don't have to beat the drum too much on it, but I would say that maybe would you agree like a guardrail situation like what you're talking about with like maybe putting it behind the counter where like children or no one can really get to it unless they actually specifically request it.
If the library wanted to implement that, I would not be opposed to it. I believe the library should implement something like that. I don't think it is the county's job to tell them to implement that. I don't think it's the county's job to tell them, oh, you need to do this or you need to do that, because it is a private enterprise.
Well, and that's kind of the weird thing about this, right? This is a library that's like a incorporated nonprofit. It's not it's not really a public entity. It has public money that's received from the county, but it's interesting that you have in this specific county a very unique situation with libraries. Usually they're actually public libraries. In this case, it's called a public library, but it's not really. It's incorporated nonprofit, which puts it in this sticky position, in this situation. And it's just so convenient that it's in a conservative county, right, where they could more easily control the library and what's going on and what goes into it if it were completely public, but it's not. Yeah. And so it puts the left in a really interesting situation where they're kind of like the left is cheering for the incorporated nonprofit, like the the entities there, but not the public situation, right?
Yeah, and my view on this has always been the financial aspect. Should taxpayer money be paying for this stuff? I am iffy on public-private partnerships. I think we need to look deep into them and consider the prudence of them. In this case, we've had an agreement with Samuels for, I don't know, a couple decades. So it's been a long-standing relationship, and we got what we got. So we need to work with what we have, and when we look at the book thing, I completely agree with you. It's a issue of taxpayer money. For me, it's not about telling them what to do. I don't think that's the county's job. You shouldn't tell them what to do. You can tell them what to do with county money. Do you want them to spend it on this? Do you want them to spend it on that? The volunteer fire department has rules and regulations on what they can spend county money on. How much money they can spend. How much money they can spend with permission from a certain individual. How much money they can spend with permission from the Board of Supervisors. So other public-private partnerships in the county, like volunteer fire departments, do have pretty stringent regulations on, how they can spend their money. Now, according, and I will give the library credit for this, that they have said that their book collection is actually not using county money. I believe they did say that at one point. I may be mistaken, though. So apparently their books were not funded with county money, and that most of the county money actually goes to staff salaries.
No, but the county money's made those books accessible,
Yeah.
So it's a gross situation. For me, it's hard to wrap my brain around the idea that a parent wants to expose their children to something that's going to work against them down the road, But yeah, any remaining thoughts on that?
I'm done talking about the library.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a done and settled issue. Yeah. I guarantee it. It is not going to be a problem after July.
Yeah, I think my interest in it kind of falls to everything in Warren County, kind of like a microcosm of the fight of rural America versus leftists trying to take it over, right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of look at it in that context personally.
Yeah. It definitely is symbolic. It's a symbolic fight. I think you've seen a lot of people come out of the woodwork in this battle who have zero interest in libraries and who just want to fight because it's symbolic of something. It's almost like a culture war.
Yeah.
They see this as a culture war. And then there are the people who may have a financial interest in it, who are fighting for it. Then there are other people who I know many good conservative people who defend the library because it's been a staple of our community for so long. I actually understand that position the most, that you sort of want to defend an institution that you grew up with.
So why don't you tell us about anything else that we missed on your platform? Is there anything else that you're running on specifically in Warren County, something that's going to be particularly close to your heart with being in public office?
Lower taxes, support our first responders, focus on teacher retention, more efficient public schools, and let's just use some common sense and get younger people involved in government. That's my main platform. That's what I really care about. I want to get younger people involved. I want a Warren County that my kids want to live and work in.
So tell me a little bit about your opponent who has a little bit of a past in this county, right? I mean, word on the street is he doesn't have a good rep for something a project he tried to bring to the area. Is this the right guy I'm thinking of?
Oh, yes. I think the Linden Sheets.
Okay, now I'm torn on this because
really?
I love Sheets. Sheets, I love you. I love Sheets, but
are they sponsoring this show?
Not that I know of.
Oh, really?
No,
okay.
But they should. If you want to come and give me a little bit of money, I'm all for it. I love Sheets. Anyway, no. So what I'm saying is, I understand the actual issues with, like the water and everything else. But yeah, why don't you talk about those? I'm doing your work for you. But yeah, tell me about the real problems with it.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, the biggest concern is where they wanted to develop it was just a horrible spot to put a very, very busy gas station, restaurant combo. Like, it would have been horrible. There were, of course, issues with water, electric, like the typical development concerns. And also that the people just didn't really want it. And he flip-flopped on this issue.
And he was on the Board of Supervisors when this happened?
Yes, he was.
Okay.
If I have the order correctly, he voted against it and then forced the issue back and voted for it.
Interesting.
And then it fell through.
So when did this take place?
Ooh, was this?
When was this discussion?
Trying to remember.
Well, ballpark, is it like 5 years, 10 years?
I think it was 2018, 2019-ish.
Okay.
That area.
All right. Huh. So, okay. And what were some of the issues with where it was? Like, what was the problem with it being where it was at?
It was mainly the traffic concerns. I mean, the road to get to Linden is just a horrible road. I mean, that area of John Marshall Highway, that corridor off the interstate, very bad traffic concerns.
And there's also a water issue with having it there, right?
Yes, I don't know the specifics of the water problem. But
I mean, if you got like a big truck stop in your community, one day you don't have it, the next day you have it. I mean, that's a huge demand. And an area already struggling to keep up with, it's having, I mean, I've been there where, they have drought issue warnings for, months at a time.
Well, yeah. I mean, in Warren County, if you just dip a cup into the river, there's probably going to be a drought warning. Like we are very, very, very low on water. It is horrible. We have drought conditions every single year. We've had drought conditions every single year for the last 3 years. The drought conditions have even started earlier than expected. It's getting really, really bad. And a part of it is we have had rapid overdevelopment. We have not been able to actually plan for these developments. We've not been able to plan for a lot of this. And we just were not prepared. We were not in the right condition to build all these houses. And now, the part of this is actually a town issue where you can build a couple thousand houses by right. So you don't need a permit for it. They should just be built by right. So there is obviously that town issue. And if you built all of those houses, our drought conditions would be far, far, far worse than they are now. And we just need to start planning for the future. I mean, we need to have a 5-10 year plan. We shouldn't just be approving things willy-nilly like they wanted to do with the Linden Sheets.
Yeah.
One day you're for it, one day you're against it, one day you're for it again. And I think that was a great end to my opponent's career on the Board of Supervisors. It was a very great end because he was not principled. He changed his mind. He made these giant decisions on the fly. And most of these giant decisions were not in the interest of his constituents. He didn't really care about his constituents. Actually, his last year on the Board of Supervisors, he was absent from more meetings than he attended.
Oh.
He didn't care. He wasn't voting for them. He was not interested in giving his constituents a voice. And it really showed what his 28 years of public service were all about. He wasn't serving the public. He was serving himself and his friends.
Yeah, and I guess that's a little interesting because, like, even if he had been for it the whole time, at least he would have had a stance. But he kind of just bounced around, right? Yeah, that's a problem. So tell me about you were mentioning the housing stuff.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of developers who've been wanting to come to Front Royal and kind of set up a ton of little townhouses and properties on just squish up as many tin cans as you possibly can to the county. So, like, where do you stand on that problem?
Well, one, I don't think you should be able to open your window and be able to smell what your neighbors are cooking. That's a big problem with how they want to just squish these houses together. I mean, if a developer wants to come in and they want to build, like 800 houses, half an acre per house, like, no, absolutely not. We don't want Ryan homes in our community. We don't want these cookie cutter houses. We don't want them. We don't need them. We need to be maintaining our small town charm. I mean, I think more places need to be looking like Linden and less like Vint Hill.
Vint Hill? I don't think I've heard of that.
Really? You haven't?
No.
It's in Fauquier County.
Okay. Yeah. I'm still kind of new here, so kind of a newbie. But
I lived in Vint Hill for some time.
What's it look like?
Cookie cutter homes, all stacked on top of each other.
Yeah. Ugh. It looks kind of ugly, I imagine.
It's a pretty. It's beautiful in its own way.
Oh,
it's
such a political answer.
Yeah, it's beautiful like modern art. It has its own beauty. But I don't want that type of beauty in Warren County. Yeah. I think these other areas can have that type of beauty. I'll keep our small town beauty.
All right. So when is the election? When does it start? When is it? When do things end?
Well,
can people vote for you yet? Or
yes, they can.
They can actually vote for you today.
Yes. Not today.
Oh, okay.
But
starting tomorrow, right?
No, Monday.
Oh, excuse me. Okay.
Yes, you can. As of May 2nd, you can vote Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, at the Warren County Registrar's office.
Okay.
And the 2 Saturdays before the primary day election, which is June 17th, you can also vote 9 to 5.
Nice.
Then June 17th, your usual precincts. So Warren County has, my district, Happy Creek, has the Warren County High School where you can vote, and then the Linden Fire Station where you can vote on June 17th.
So you're going to get a bunch of your friends from college to... You're at Christendom, right?
Yes, yeah. I am.
You're going to get a bunch of your friends to come over and help you campaign and knock on doors and stuff?
Well, of course, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll bring them from all over.
But, you've got a huge advantage because you're Gen Z, and Gen Z is amazingly meme literate, right? We've got a high meme literacy.
Yes,
right?
Yes, we do.
And... and you're quite the connoisseur yourself. I've seen them, right? I've seen a couple of memes you've shown, at least one, right? It was very good. So, I mean, how are you gonna? Has that been something that's been advantageous to your campaign at all?
Well, I think the meme literacy works for a certain demographic of voter, and I try to have a wide appeal. So certain memes may appeal to people of a different demographic, and then the memes that I may enjoy may appeal more to the 18 to 25 range, and then the 25 to 35 range has a different type of humor, and it goes from there. So
he's studying the numbers, guys. He's just like looking at this. He's like, 26-year-olds are for this. The 24-year-olds, not so much.
Yes, I do have my spreadsheets and my graphs.
No, you
to
need
determine,
people like you, right? You guys are the ones that are like going to be like, hey, this is a problem. And all of us are going to be like, oh, I wasn't reading it because it looked too boring. Right? So, like, you guys are the heroes. So...
Yes, please thank your local spreadsheet enthusiast. We are saving the world.
Damn right. So did you hear about the Comey thing?
Yes, I did.
So he wrote, just for anyone who was just not opening their social media the past 2-3 days, he had like a beach photo. Right? Do I have it on my computer? I think I do. Let me pull it up. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so it says 8647. He posted that on Instagram, I think, right?
That looks like Instagram.
Yeah. And it says 8647. And what does that say? Cool shell formation on my beach walk. Like, talk about like just like lame Gen X humor. I mean, it's just like, this is like what happens when you are starving for attention and you can't think of any other way to oppose like this guy that you have an actual disease with, like, over, right? TDS, I think, is a real thing, right? So I don't know, what was your reaction when you saw this?
Well, like any normal human being, I actually had to look up what like 86 means. Like,
I work in the film industry, so I knew this, but
I'm not really in tune with like mob numerology. Like,
you mean you're a normal person?
Yeah,
that's why you're here.
Yeah,
you like normal people.
Yeah, and I'll just be honest, like, I was hoping I'd never have to hear of James Comey again. Like I thought he just vanished and was enjoying his retirement. Like, why would somebody do this? And I hear that he was like interrogated by the U.S. Secret Service as well. And aren't there like open investigations into that now? Like, yeah, like that is kind of crazy that you post a weird shell formation you found on the beach, and then, you know, the Secret Service is banging on your door.
It's just to me, it's just the dude. I think he's just an attention whore. I think he just cannot help himself. I think he enjoyed all the attention in the media, right? I think he enjoys it, and and he knows that people, like, about 50% of leftists at this point, Democrats, think that it's not such a bad thing if Trump's assassinated, right? So he knows that's the political environment. I mean, he works for the FBI, you know, and a lot of these agencies, you know, they do factor in, you know, how the public is affected by things.
Yeah. Well, I think it just demonstrated a severe lack of prudence. Like, when you had such a high position in federal law enforcement, you should know better. And I get that maybe he just wanted to be back in the news cycle. You know, after the whole Clinton email fiasco, and do you remember the time that he like hid behind the curtain in the Oval Office?
Wait,
yeah.
Did he actually? Did I miss this somehow? What year was this?
Oh, this was like right before he was was he fired or? Yeah, I think he was fired or resigned. Like he was hiding behind a curtain during a press conference. Like President Trump was giving his press conference. He was over there in the corner, like trying to hide behind a curtain, which is kind of difficult because he's like 6'5" or something.
What a weirdo! What a
so I don't know.
That sounds like something straight out of the Muppets. Why is he acting like a Muppet?
So I don't know if he, you know, craves the attention, because if you're craving attention, you wouldn't really be trying to hide behind a curtain.
But maybe it was what was in front of him. Was it like Trump speaking or like someone around? Like,
so
did he not want to be associated with someone? Was that the deal?
I think Trump was, if I remember the context correctly, there are like funny photos of it like out there somewhere, but I think Trump was talking about him or something like that, and he was just like slowly inching behind the curtain, and all of Trump's cabinet was in the room. I'm pretty, if I'm remembering it correctly. Yeah, if you just look up like a James Comey hiding, like I'm sure you can find it somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing photos of him like hiding or standing in front of the blue curtain.
Yeah,
but I don't see him actually hiding behind it, unless like maybe you just can't see him in some of the photos. I'm trying to look here. I don't know. This is fascinating to me. I gotta look into this. Peekaboo! Especially these little parrots like peekaboo.
Sorry, I know all the obscure James Comey lore, but gosh. Yeah, I just found this insane. Why would somebody do this?
What a legend! What a legend, man! Yeah. I gotta give him props for hiding behind, just doing something so goofy.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, on the Board of Supervisors, I promise I won't like hide under the desk during like public comments. Even though there will probably be times I want to.
What a weirdo.
Yeah.
Honestly. Yeah. I'm looking at this stuff. I just see him standing in front of it. You're just going to have to send it to me because that sounds absolutely hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, James Comey has always just been a very unique bureaucrat.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. That's very nice. You're very charitable.
I try my best to be.
Are you Catholic?
I am not Catholic.
You're Protestant?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so that's very charitable. Either way, right? Very charitable. That's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to exercise.
Yeah, there are not many people I don't like. I try to find the good in everybody and everything, and try to understand every side without losing my mind.
Yeah. Well, and just to tell the audience kind of how we met, like we would be speaking at a lot of the same, like Board of Supervisor events. We'd be both in the Republican Party locally here, and you just give like head nods, at each other, right? And like I'd go up there and just rail and be like, "You scumbags!" Blah blah blah, just screaming at him, and then he comes up with like a couple papers and has a really well written, really well thought out like plan, but we were both on the same page. His approach was so much more thought out, right? But that's kind of how I remember it.
Yeah. Oh, those were the days. Yeah, I've always taken the more polished approach to politics.
Yeah,
where I think that the best way to change somebody's mind is to make the, calm, polite, logical arguments with a lot of nuance and charity.
No, it makes sense, especially if that's closer to your nature.
Yeah.
Right.
And I did always have an appreciation for your, throw a Molotov cocktail at it and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll say, the board usually agreed with us, so I don't know who had the successful approach here.
Yeah, I think this is where I think God makes different missions for different people, right? Even if they're on the same side, they kind of give them different talents and different skills or different things that they can get better at. I was never like a huge public speaker, but I just felt like I'm good at being angry. Right, so I'm okay at it. I'm all right at it, but I'm terrible if like you put a paper in front of me and I'm like blah 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 blah. I can't do it. Mm-hmm. You sound good when you do that. I don't. So I have to do it that way. But
inside you there are two wolves.
Yeah, precisely. But it does bring up the idea of bringing people to our side, and you talk about like the more charitable approach like what you have, and that's extremely valuable, but I think there's also the approach of sometimes just saying something and laying out what it is, and then people authentically seeing how you feel about it is enough to convince someone who's apathetic. And I think we think about like converting people or in politics, we tend to think about, oh, hey, how do we make this Democrat a Republican, and how do we make this Republican a Democrat? It's like, well, how about the apathetics? And we don't think about people who are apathetic enough. You mentioned some when you were talking about your campaign work, right?
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about the importance of that, because I know that you agree with me on this.
Well,
you agree with me
here?
Yeah, I made a few points. I think you agree with me that reaching apathetics or people that are politically apathetic is important.
Yes. I completely agree with you on that. I will take issue with the idea of like converting people to conservatism. I've never liked the idea of politics being treated like a religion.
Oh, you don't like the phraseology. Yeah, and I get you. For me, it's like it's just simpler to say that.
Yeah.
But what word would you replace it with? Because I'm open to changing the word I use.
I think people can be convinced.
Yeah, I think that's better.
Because in religion, obviously there's a conversion of the heart. There's an emotional conversion. And also in religion, there's a intellectual conversion. Somebody can be convinced of a religious standpoint, but it may not be in their heart or in their soul. And I don't really think that conservatism is in somebody's heart and soul. I don't. Now, some people may treat it like that. I mean, they may be so...
Well, you could say patriotism is, right? As part of someone's heart.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yes. Yeah, I would. I think that conservatism is primarily a intellectual thing. I think you can be emotionally convinced, especially when it comes to some socially conservative things where you do have strong moral objections to certain things and you want to see that implemented in the political sphere. I mean, now that is a combination of religion and politics where you have people who are just morally opposed to something. But when we're talking about, let's talk about conservatism on the national level, the welfare state. Now, some people want to make it out to be like you have this like moral conviction to keep Medicare, keep Medicaid, and people do speak about politics in moral terms. I think we need to be talking about conservatism, talking about politics, especially the more financial, economic aspect of politics in intellectual terms. I think this is something where you need to be thinking clearly. You need to be looking at the numbers, breaking it down, seeing what's reasonable, what's practical, what's pragmatic, what can we do and what can we not do. Not looking at the broader ideals. Like let's boil it down here. And then social issues, that's up to somebody's morality. I mean, I have a Christian morality, so I'm opposed to certain things, support certain things, and I would consider myself socially conservative. But when we're talking about like the fiscal standpoint of raising taxes, cutting taxes, balancing the budget, I mean, I don't think somebody is converted into that. But I think you can reach the politically apathetic people with just common sense. I mean, the politically apathetic person, I mean, they still pay taxes.
Well, yeah, and I think
they still use public resources, and if you just talk to them straight and say, "Do you want your taxes to be lower? Okay, here's how.
Yeah,
here's what conservatism is.
Show how things are affecting them."
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, are convinced of progressivism and liberalism until they have to pay taxes.
True. Well, there's also, I think, there's the apathetics that just aren't paying attention politically. Mm-hmm. But then there's also, I think, a large chunk of apathetics have given up on voting, where they've seen that. Mm-hmm. They might be former conservatives, they are still, but they've just given up on that route, and they're just waiting for things to get really bad before they jump into the fray. Yeah. Not talking about war necessarily, but they're just they've given up on the system because they've voted for people who've promised them lower taxes and these things so many times, and they've given up, right? And I feel like different apathetics require different strategies to reach them.
Oh, obviously, yeah. You do have the people who gave up on voting. You have the people who have never voted. And the people who gave up on voting, we just need to be on a local Republican basis, because everything starts on the local level. We need to be giving them better candidates.
Yeah.
Not to beat the dead horse of my opponent, but he was on the Board of Supervisors for 20 years. Voters never had a choice.
Anything for 20 years. I know you got your modern day U.S. Congress, which is like, we said that, the general nursing home in some instances, but 20 years? What are you doing? How do you have that sort of time? 20 years on the Board of Supervisors.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's why you have severe voter apathy, because every 4 years you go out and vote and you see the same name on the ballot and there's no other name on there. So of course you're going to get apathetic. You're going to wonder, what does this office even do? Does it have any power? Like, it's just the same guy over and over and over again, and you sort of just glance over that like you glance over the Soil and Water Commission that's on your ballot.
But he's data center curious, I guess, or open, data center open, right? How would you define that? We were just going back to this one point because I want to talk about some of your contention, some of your issues with them real quick. So we know the Sheets thing was a problem.
Yes.
And his data center stance is a problem.
Yes. I have a problem with the fact that we have been talking about data centers for a good 2 months now in this campaign, and he's not said a word about data centers. What has he been talking about? Just the library. Just the library. An issue that is going to be resolved likely by the end of the month. So, and obviously don't quote me on that. Something may come up. But how can you make your entire campaign about a single issue?
Well, it's something people barely use anyway nowadays, right? I think you were telling me upstairs that they're not the same as they used to be.
Yeah. I think just like with data centers, you have to consider the obsolescence problem. Will data centers become obsolete in five years? Will libraries become obsolete? Now, I will concede that libraries have started to offer other programs. They offer notary services. They offer printing services. I think the library around here even has some really cool recording stuff that you can use in there. You can do your own podcast in the library if you want to. I wouldn't, but because I'm here instead.
Hell yeah!
It's much cooler here.
Hey,
actually,
you like the memes? You like the artwork here?
Oh yes,
Good deal. All right, good. It's a little different than a lot of the conservative bro influencers you'll see. Nothing against them. I like a lot of them, but it's I don't know. I just like a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And Punch Out. I love Punch Out. But yeah. So let me ask you just a couple more things. We'll wrap this up.
Okay.
But one thing I'm particularly interested in is what drives people and what their purpose in life is. And I know that's such a huge sort of question to throw your way.
Yeah.
But it is something that makes me, the more I understand people, the more I love them, like them, and I've learned that, not in talking with you, but sometimes when some people are talking at me, right, I get a little frustrated with me being annoyed by it, right, because you want to love people, right, and particularly there have been instances where people were helping me and I was annoyed by how much they were talking at me, despite the fact they were helping me. Yeah. So I was like, how do I get to a point where I can not be annoyed by them? So I started asking questions like, what's your purpose? What's your dream? What's the craziest thing that's happened in your life? Things like that, So just asking you, what's your biggest dream? What are you going after? What's the most important thing for you right now?
I want to help build a community that my kids can live in, that they can work in, that they can play in, and that they can raise a family in. That has always been my biggest dream, is to serve my community, to build a better community. I've always dreamed of that ever since I was little. I went from
you're talking about like putting diaper. You're like 3 years old, and you're like, yeah, see my bro. Like, what you talk? Like, what age?
Starting at like 4 or so, I wanted to be a cop.
Okay.
Starting at like 5 or 6, I saw my dad, and I'm like, ooh, I want to be a firefighter. That's cool.
But so you're seeing a pattern.
Yeah.
That you always wanted to serve your community in some way.
Yeah. I have always wanted to enter public service in one way, shape, or form, because it's honestly the most rewarding thing that you can do. I've seen how my family is so proud of what they've done, from serving in public office to being first responders. My father was in the fire department his entire life.
Wow.
My mom was a dispatcher. Like, these are public servants, and I'm so proud of my family's legacy of public service. I want to continue that, and my dream is to have my kids have the same response, where they can look at what I've done and they can be like, I want to do that too. Now, I don't want my kids running for office. It's horrible. I don't recommend it.
Wait. Have you had a really bad experience? Well, you can get to that in a bit. But yeah, finish your thought.
But I want my kids to think about the ways that they can serve their community. They want to be firefighters. They want to be dispatchers. They want to be cops. They want to go into the military. I have so many friends who've gone into the military, and they've felt so rewarded by it. So yeah, that has always been my dream. In one way, shape, or form, I've wanted to serve my community, and I've wanted to make my family proud. I want to leave a legacy for my kids so that they can enter public service too. And it doesn't even have to be like running into burning buildings or arresting criminals. Starting a small business. Yeah. That's also serving your community.
That's absolutely right. You're serving a need or a desire, right? You're serving, there's a demand for something and you're serving it. Mm-hmm. I actually think being a successful business owner is a very generous and actually like a very selfless thing in a way, because you're only rewarded when people actually make a willful decision to buy your product or service. Yeah. So it's actually, I think it's a very generous thing if it's not abused, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I think that's a beautiful dream, man. I think that's good. I did have a question that popped up in the middle about, you said, you wouldn't recommend it for anyone, for your kids, right? Running. Is there some sort of experience that you've had that's led you to say that?
Well, having worked on so many campaigns, I've dealt with countless crazy people, both in person, online. It is, I would say, a mentally draining experience. When my campaign announcement came out and I saw my face in the paper for the first time, I immediately thought, what did I do? And I made the awful, horrible decision of going on Facebook, searching up the article, and reading the 326 comments.
Gosh.
And I went through every single one. And as we've already assessed, I try my best to have some nuance and charity. I would say I try to have charity. But with charity, you also need to have restraint, and sometimes I don't have restraint.
Yeah, no, I understand that. So, if you don't mind me asking, what were some of the things that people were saying about you? Things that you are okay with repeating false things or just nasty things. I want to hear specifically what they were saying.
Well, I'll go with the most common criticism, at least when I first announced, was, what's a 20-year-old doing running for office? And I saw that comment 20, 30, 40 times. And it's hilarious because at that time we were after the deadline to file. So there were 2 people running. If they didn't want a 20-year-old running, and I had announced that I was running, months prior, nobody else jumped into the race. It was just me and
that's right,
the former supervisor.
I remember.
Yeah. I was being supported by the current sitting supervisor as well. So a lot of people were like, what's a 20-year-old doing running for office? So my first thought was always, why didn't you run? If somebody else wanted to step into the race and run, I'd be more than happy to have them in the race, and we could do this fair and square. So it just didn't make much sense, that criticism. Now, the more recent criticism is always, you see it all over the place now about, the Catholic cabal. There's this super secret Catholic cabal that's trying to take over Warren County, and that, these people, 1% of the population control 80% of the elected and appointed positions.
And hold on, before I got to pause you here because this is an interesting thing because it's like a sort of left-leaning attack. Mm-hmm. But there's also your opponent is using this as well, who is running for the Republican position.
Yes.
Which you've got to be not all there if you think that's a winning Republican position in a very conservative politically county. I mean, that's doesn't sound like a very smart a place to be.
Yeah,
to just vilifying Catholics in a county where Christendom colleges and a bunch of Catholics reign.
Yeah, it's not a smart move at all. I can see what they're trying to do here is basically just attacking, I'd say, the dominant political force. Yes, there are a lot of Catholics who serve in elected positions in Warren County, but they're elected positions. How come only Catholics have run? Why didn't they have an opponent? I don't think there was some sort of grand conspiracy here to, force the issue and, have an entirely Catholic dominated board. If they wanted an entirely Catholic dominated board, I don't know why they're running me.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, I'm not a Catholic. Do I love the Catholic community? Yes, I do. I have a bunch of Catholic friends.
You go to a Catholic college.
I go to a Catholic college.
Yeah.
I love the Catholic educational atmosphere. So I don't understand the rabid anti-Catholicism that we're starting to see in this community. It doesn't make much sense. It really doesn't. I mean, start talking to some Catholics. These are the nicest people you'll ever meet.
So what is he saying about Catholics specifically? That a small group of them are... I mean, what is it precisely that he said?
So this general conspiracy... So it isn't necessarily just what he's saying. He is repeating a very common, dare I call it, a conspiracy theory, that there is a small sect of Catholics that are these authoritarian theocrats that want to take over our community, destroy our library. What else are they trying to claim that we want to do? I don't know. I think just the general theme is that this small group of Catholics wants to take over our community.
I mean, he's getting the numbers wrong on that. It's not exactly a small group of Catholics that live here anymore, right?
Well,
it's a pretty large group.
I may be wrong about the stat they used in this one letter to the editor. They said 1.25%, I believe. I think what they're including there is like Christendom student and faculty, like what number that makes in our total population. If we're talking Catholics in Warren County, I think we're looking more towards like 35-40%.
So they're saying, the Christendom College Catholics are trying to run and destroy what we love about Warren County. Is that the general narrative?
Yes, and they're grasping at some straws here with their numbers. Like when we're talking about the Board of Supervisors, they say 4 out of 5 members of the Board of Supervisors is in this community. I mean, of course, some members of the board have sent their kids to Christendom College. Some members went to the Christendom I believe one went to the Christendom Graduate School. I may be wrong there. But the rest, I don't see a connection there. Like, we got 2 on the board who have a loose connection where they sent their kids there, or, they went to the grad school. Like, I don't really see the connection. Like, they're claiming 4 out of 5. Okay, we got 2. Where's the rest? Are they just saying that they're Christendom adjacent? Are they Catholic adjacent? like am I Catholic adjacent? Like what proximity to Catholics do you have to be, included in this group? And if it's some sort of like grand small group that is planning a takeover, why didn't I get invited to the meetings?
Yeah.
Like I'm sort of upset that they're like allegedly running me for office and I didn't get invited to these top secret meetings.
Yeah, you didn't get your invitation. And if there's going to be like a Catholic supremacy group organization, you should at least have an invite to check it out, right?
Yeah,
check it out.
Yeah, like I mean, I want to stay at like arm's reach here. I don't know about this like Catholic supremacy thing, and I'm not a huge fan of fascism or theocracy. Those are sort of big loaded words. Not a big fan of those things, and I'll say a lot of the Catholics I talk to, they're not big fans either. So I think if there is this secret group planning a fascist theocratic takeover, they're not going to have very broad support amongst the community.
Yeah, so tell me about you mentioned to me that there was a protest. Was that today?
It was supposed to be today, but I didn't see it.
Okay,
I think they were planning to have a protest, and there were a lot of talk about it.
Well, why don't you tell our audience what was supposed to happen and what ended up happening?
So a group was formed called Clean Up Christendom. This was in response to some of the wastewater treatment plant issues that Christendom College has had. And I'll be candid about this, that it is a problem. And I actually agree with the sentiment of a lot of these people that it is a problem. I don't think that pollution is ever acceptable. Even if it's a college, the town of Front Royal has very similar issues with their wastewater treatment plant, where there are these discharges into the river. As far as I am aware, with Christendom College, the leak or discharge from the wastewater treatment plant actually did not go into the river. It went into a UT that connects to the river. It was about 400 feet from actually getting into the river. But still, this is a very serious problem, and it needs to be resolved. I completely agree with the DEQ, the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality. I mean, they made the right decision in finding the college for this, and the college needs to make vast improvements with their wastewater treatment plant. It's a serious problem.
So let's talk a little bit about the protester standpoint here. Are these, and I'm just trying to understand it, I don't want to put words in your mouth here, but are these basically like left-leaning people who are vilifying this situation as a Catholic problem? Because I feel like I've seen that, but I'm not sure of it. You're more familiar with this, obviously, than I am, but has that happened here?
I think there are some people who think this is a Catholic problem and see it as sort of a... They see this as just a political issue that they can jump on. And there are others who see it as an environmental issue and want to take it very, very seriously. And I think what needs to happen is people need to look at this issue and come to their own conclusions. Was this protest specifically to target Christendom College as an institution that is, that has produced 2 candidates for local office? Was this an attack on me and the other candidate for this? Maybe it was. I'm not willing to say that it is. They claim this was entirely environmentally related. If it was entirely environmentally related, I agree with them. I wholeheartedly agree with them. We can't have pollution in the river. I mean, that's why I'm so opposed to data centers. We can't be straining our environment. It's a massive problem. But you also need to look at the intention of some of these people. Did they have an ill intent with this? And the fact that Christendom College's graduation was today, and they wanted to be driving up and down Shenandoah Shore slowly to impede traffic, and they wanted to be protesting on the side of Shenandoah Shores Road and the intersection of Happy Creek Road, and so they can be waving signs at all the parents coming to see their child graduate. I'm not too fond of that. Yeah. I do not think that they had good intentions here. No matter the issue at hand. I mean, I don't think you should be impeding traffic to make a political point. I don't think you should be impeding traffic to make an environmental point.
No.
But, if they were solely protesting, violations of environmental law, okay. Hell, I'd join them.
Let me ask you this. Is there anything, if you're on the Board of Supervisors, is there anything you could do to alleviate that problem if you get elected? I know it's an issue with Christendom College, but it might affect other interests, other people in the county, right? At some point, if it gets to a point where it's actually affecting the water.
Yeah, I do not know the specifics of what the Board of Supervisors can actually do to alleviate such a problem. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure that can be put on private institutions to resolve these problems, and I would be willing to do that. I would be willing to put their feet to the fire on this, call them out on it, and get it fixed. And the college did release a statement on this. It was a quite good statement where they did explain a lot, and I am glad that they are making moves to be better environmental stewards. I give them props for that. I'm a proud student there. I am very proud of the college. It's not perfect. They make mistakes, and when somebody makes a mistake, they need to be called out on it, and I'm willing to call them out on it. I'm a proud student. I'm a proud supporter of the college. I know a lot of the alum, faculty, staff. I'm proud of everything this institution has accomplished. But I know faculty, staff, alum, who are willing to call them out on this and admit that our institution made a mistake. They make a lot of mistakes. We both make a lot of mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
And we need to be willing to accept criticism for it.
That's right. Make amends. Well, now, son, we're going to wrap this up, but before we do, give us all your final pitch for running for Board of Supervisors in Warren County. No, hold on a second. Before I get to that, I keep this. It's like I go to wrap things up, and I keep remembering like 4 other things. But one other thing, and then that question. You're not the youngest person. You would not be the youngest person to be on the Board of Supervisors, but the second youngest person in the state of Virginia. Is that right?
I believe that is correct. I believe I would be the second youngest to be on the Board of Supervisors. I think I was beat for youngest elected official in Virginia. I believe it was a mayor who was elected at 18 years old.
Okay, so you're beat in that, but you would be the youngest Board of Supervisors member if elected in the state of Virginia.
No, I would be the second youngest Board of Supervisors member. I'd be like the 4th or 5th youngest elected official in Virginia.
That's still pretty young.
Yeah. I'm just glad I'm not going to get too much attention as like a first.
Yeah, you just want to do your job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I am in this to serve my community. I don't want any fancy title, and I don't want, to be featured in, some like 30 under 30 magazine.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not interested in that.
I never got on the 30 under 30 when I was under 30. I never did. I did because, listen, I'm not going to brag, but I did some cool stuff. Mm-hmm. I did not get onto that group. I was not in the know. I didn't fit in.
Yeah. I just want to do my job and leave.
Yeah.
I want to do the best I can and then just, bye guys.
So you're like, if there's an opportunity to be on a 30 under 30, you're like, nope.
No. I don't need the attention. I don't want the attention.
What a rare thing in a young individual, huh? Isn't that refreshing? I think that's refreshing. But no, that's fantastic.
I have always just wanted to be in the background and do my job and then just go home.
That's awesome. No, what was the other thing I want? Oh, yeah. So, I guess we'll just wrap it up. So, what's your final pitch to people in Warren County? And I guess you would have to be in the Happy Creek area, right?
Yes, that's right.
So, what's your final pitch?
Well, if you want new ideas, new, fresh face, if you want lower taxes, less development, if you just want somebody who's community focused, who wants to support our first responders, who wants to support our teachers, vote for Cameron Williams.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, sir, it has been a pleasure and an honor having you on. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's one of our first episodes. I mean, it might be the first one I publish.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So I figured we had to get it going because, we got a race happening and you may want to say a couple things.
So maybe I will be a first.
Yeah, you actually will be a first. Oh, sorry. I'm going to bring you unwanted attention there, pal. I'm sorry.
Oh, boy.
So maybe next time we have you on, we'll talk about like Final Fantasy VI lore or something, or Earthbound. Have you played Earthbound?
I have played Earthbound.
Have you beaten it?
Yes, I have.
Oh, man. What a legend. What a legend. All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.